Wait a second. I had a sudden suspicion. We'd always thought that the criminal had broken the window and entered the room. But was that really the case? Here's our selection. We can choose between A, which is perhaps the criminal had entered the guest house long before. Or B, I realized that there was someone without an alibi amongst us. Here we're going to go with A. So perhaps the criminal had entered the guest house from long before. Maybe he took his time cutting Tanaka-san up. If that wasn't the case, then there's no way an ordinary person would be able to cut a body up like that. Or maybe there was some way to. Perhaps there was a method to cut someone up like that in such a short amount of time after the sound of the window breaking. Here we have 3 choices. I'm going to go with A here. So we've kind of been through this, I think, before in an earlier episode. There's no way you could do something like that. Without a doubt, the criminal has been in the guest house since long ago. But how? When? And where from? How can somebody enter the guest house without anybody realizing? Because all the doors were closed properly, the only way they could have got in was through the front entrance and through the entrance near the drying room. But if it was from one of those 2 entry points, they most certainly would have been noticed by someone. Even if all the guests were off in the lounge or somewhere back in the guest house, at least Kobayashi-san would have noticed if anyone was coming in and going out. Which means another selection, which means we have to go with... We're going with C here. They entered from the front entrance, but nobody saw them. So that's how. Suddenly, I saw the truth. That's not to say that this person was an invisible man. I saw who the criminal was with my own eyes. However, there was a psychological blind spot. What's wrong? You look like a cuckoo got hit by a water gun, Marty said, looking in my direction. Don't you mean like a potato gun or something like that? Whatever, either one. So what's up? I know what happened. I know the truth. The culprit that cut Tanaka-san up into pieces. Everyone suddenly looked in my direction, surprised. Really? Kobayashi-san said, surprised. By the culprit, do you mean that it's someone amongst us? Someone that we know? Marty asked. I'm afraid so, I said. You can't be serious. And then I said, so we've got 3 new choices here. Choices here are, A is, the criminal is me. number B is the criminal is Mari. You. And the other storyline, that would have been correct, but I don't know if it's correct here. Choice number C is the culprit is not me and not Mari. It's got to be C, right? Yeah, I think I'm going with C. Here we go. So, this is what we didn't get to do the first time around. This is where we have to nominate who we think the criminal is. We didn't even get a chance to do this in the first go through, but when we were on our first playthrough, do you remember I was pretty suspicious of Mikimoto? It turns out I wasn't far off. So here I'm going to put in Mikimoto, and we'll see what happens. Mikimoto. The criminal is Mikimoto-san, I said defiantly. Mikimoto-san? Did you say Mikimoto-san? Mikimoto-san's been here in the lounge the entire time, ever since he got here. Mari-san said, quickly opposing my view. Well, he definitely went upstairs to the second floor. Mari continued, looking up into the second floor, searching her memories. Yeah, he put his bags down, and I'm sure it only took around 2 minutes. How could he possibly have killed Tanaka-san and cut his body up into pieces? It seemed like she was covering for Mikimoto-san. Perhaps she had feelings for him. I caught myself imagining strange things like that as I continued. Choices here are A is that's correct. I'm sure he wouldn't have been able to do that. Or B is if Mikimoto-san arrived a lot earlier than we thought he did, he would have been able to cut up Tanaka-san. I reckon I'm sort of leaning towards B, but I could be wrong here. Let's have a look. Might be A though. Let's have a look. So we're at, what is it, 56? 56 is... yeah, I'm going with A. Right. I guess he wouldn't have been able to do that, I said. Right? You should think more before you say things, Toru. Mari just seemed to be making fun of me. Flustered, I continued speaking. Another choice here. We have A is... he didn't have enough time to cut the body up into pieces, but he did have enough time to kill Tanaka-san. Or B is... Mikimoto-san wouldn't have been able to kill Tanaka-san, but Suzuki-san would have. I guess he wouldn't have been able to kill Tanaka-san, but if it was Suzuki-san, Midori, they would have been able to kill. Hang on. Suzuki-san. Who is Suzuki-san? Mari-san asked, looking at me strangely. That's just a name I thought up. I didn't know their actual name. So he wasn't talking about Midori. Who's Suzuki-san? Ah. In America, do you know what they say when they refer to bodies whose identity is uncertain? They refer to them as John. What are you talking about? What I mean is that dismembered body. I'm not sure who it might be, but I know that it's not Tanaka-san. It's not Tanaka-san? Who is it then? Didn't I just say that I didn't know who it was? Alright, just listen. Not Mikimoto-san nor anyone else had the time to kill Tanaka-san and cut him up into pieces. But there definitely is a dismembered body upstairs. Which means that that dead body isn't Tanaka-san. That's what I mean. Right. So now that we know who the culprit is, we no longer know who the victim is. That's what you're saying, right? Toshio-san said, laughing through his nose. That's a little odd though, isn't it? Kobayashi-san said, furrowing his brows. If the victim isn't Tanaka-san, then where did the victim come in from? Well, through the front door, of course. I think I got it. I think I know what's going on. So Mikimoto-san must have killed someone somewhere else, cut them up into pieces, put them in his bag. And so when he arrived with all his bags, in those bags must have been a dismembered body, and he took that upstairs and probably rearranged it in Tanaka-san's room. Yeah, it's simple really when you think about it. Well, there's no way that happened. If you open the door, the sound of a doorbell goes off. And even if you're not at the front desk, you're able to hear it. I suppose that is the case. If they entered alone, that is. But they were with someone else. And that's a different story. The victim entered with Tanaka-san. What on earth are you going on about? That guy was by himself. There's no doubt about it, Kobayashi-san said, seemingly angry. Did you check his ski bag? The victim was in there. They were already dead, and they were already cut up into pieces. All of the girls in the room suddenly gasped for breath and put their hands on their mouths as if trying to stop them from throwing up. So, the person that cut up the body was... Marty started speaking. The reason they dismembered the body was so that it would be easier to carry. There's no way someone would be able to cut up a body that much in such a short amount of time. Marty, you remember that threatening note that we found, right? Yeah. I was talking about that scrap of paper that the three girls had been in such a fuss about. Judging from that letter, the culprit had thought that the body would be discovered at about midnight. So when the body was discovered much earlier than that, I realized the culprit had made a huge miscalculation. Wait a sec. So the culprit put the dead body in the room, broke the window, and then ran from the second floor. Is that right? It's a little different to that. If you want to run away from the second floor, why would you need to break a window? Everybody looked at each other, full of doubt. I guess you're right. When you think about it, there's no need to break a window, Kayama-san said, rubbing his hand on his chin. If you need to break into somewhere, I guess you have to break a window, but if you're trying to get out, all you have to do is open the window, right? So why did they break the window? It was to get our attention, that's why. With that sound, we knew that something had happened, and as a result, we all rushed to the room. This was something that the culprit had planned in order to get us to discover the dead body. Why do you think something like that? Mari-san said. Suspicious. In order to formulate an alibi by mistaking the time of the crime, the actual time of the crime. Alibi? But when the window was broken, the culprit was still in the room, right? How would you make an alibi? Well, of course, at the time, the culprit was far out of the room. Of course, by that point, they'd already set up a device to break the window automatically. An automatic device to break the window with? What kind of device is that? Mari-san kept intruding, and I thought carefully. What kind of device would it be? Here we can choose between. Of course, it was the cat, Jenny. They must have used her. Or B is snow. They must have been able to do something with snow. Of course. They used the cat. Jenny the cat. I pointed towards the black cat that had curled up next to Midori-san's feet. That cat played a leading role in this crime. Jenny did? What could Jenny have done? Midori-san said, sticking up for the cat. Well, for example, maybe they gave some kind of sleeping medicine to the cat so that the cat would fall asleep. Thinking carefully, I continued speaking. They opened the window and with some kind of stick, they kept the window open. So by tying that stick and the cat's collar together, when the cat wakes up and starts moving around, the stick falls over. And in such a strong wind, The window shakes. And as it hits the wall, the glass breaks. Come to mention it, I hadn't seen Jenny that much today. Do you think she would have done something like that? Midori-san seemed surprised and looked down at the cat at her feet. However, I found my reasoning to be satisfactory. Although, wait a second. Suddenly, Midori-san objected. That room was locked, you know. How did Jenny get out of the room? And what happened to the string that was on her neck? It was locked? Well, yeah, I wonder how she left the room. Panicked, I looked around at everyone's faces. I got it. Suddenly, Muddy spoke up. You know how the cat left the room? I asked, but Muddy just shook her head. No, I realized that you're mistaken. The culprit didn't use the cat. It was the snow. They used snow. Snow? I was so taken aback that all I could do was just ask silly questions. Yeah, the snow. Seemingly confident, Marty nodded. If I remember correctly, the window opens outward, doesn't it? When the culprit went outside, they used one side of the window and they fixed the other side in place. Although having said so, it would have been fine as long as it didn't move against the wind. So they got a rope of appropriate length, tied it lightly around the handle of that fixed window. And on the other side of the rope, they tied it to some kind of flat plank, a board of some sort. Yeah, it would have been fine even to use the bottom of a ski bag. So they tied the window and a plank together with a rope. What did they do after that? I didn't want to just keep quiet and listen, so I kept asking questions. Before the culprit jumped outside, they put that plank up on the roof, inside the snow that had piled up. Why would they do something like that? Well, so that when enough time had passed, the snow would fall down together with the plank. With all that force, the window would be yanked open and it would hit the wall on the outside with a smash. plank and the rope would fall into the snow on the ground, far away from the window. I see. So in that time, the culprit would have been able to go far away from here. And they would have had an alibi as well. Kobayashi-san said, interested in the story. Mari continued. Well, that's right. But that's not enough to make an alibi, right? Can you imagine how much time it would have taken in this weather to make a watertight alibi like that? It would have been difficult to guess how much snow would fall. And that would mean that we'd have to know exactly, we'd have to remember exactly when the window broke. I suppose so. But that plan seems like it relies a little bit too much on coincidences, right? Well, if that's all it was. Mari seemed like she'd already considered the questions that I was asking her. So that's why the criminal formulated a much more conscientious plan. A plan that would mean that they'd be able to have a watertight alibi, no matter when the window broke. How is something like that possible? I kept asking questions, staring at Mari's face. And as I looked around the room, I found myself looking at one particular person. There's a much better method than just wandering around in this snowstorm. A method much less dangerous. For example, changing your clothes, changing your hair, returning to the guest house, and discovering the body together with us. Don't you think that's much better? Mikimoto-san. Damn. Nice. Whoa. I guess that means that Tanaka-san was Mikimoto-san. That's nuts. That makes so much sense. Yikes. All of us in the room, myself included, turned to look at Mikimoto-san. But all he did was return Mari's gaze and didn't move an inch. Mari started speaking once more. Tanaka-san spent the whole time with his sunglasses on, and he didn't even try to speak to anyone else. Well, if anyone put sunglasses on and changed their clothes and attached some kind of beard, they'd look like Tanaka-san to all of us, in any case. As everyone stared at him, Mikimoto-san suddenly started to laugh. What, so you think I'm some kind of master of disguises? Some kind of expert criminal Well, you don't have to be a master of disguises to do something like that. After all, none of us know what Tanaka-san's face actually looks like. Alright, well, let's say that is the case. How could you say Tanaka-san is me out of all the people here? Well, by the method of elimination. Everyone, with the exception of you, were in this guest house at the same time that Tanaka-san was. But after you arrived at the guest house, no one saw Tanaka-san. Just wait a second. That doesn't mean that I'm Tanaka-san. Well, it's also possible that he's out there driving his car around or something like that. Well, I suppose that's true. If he had a real beard, then I guess our reasoning is wrong. So maybe we should check. Overcome with anger, Mikimoto-san stared back at Mari. Alright, time to quit joking around. Do you think this is a beard? You think this is a false beard? He stood up and drew closer to Mari, rubbing his hand on his beard. Mari hesitated for a bit, but eventually she stuck out her hand and grabbed onto Mikimoto-san's beard. Ow! Mari ignored Mikimoto-san's cries of pain and kept pulling on it. There was the sound of tearing, and the beard came straight off. I thought that his skin had been torn, but of course that wasn't the case. In place of the beard, there was a clear, fresh chin. I knew it. Before Mari had barely opened her mouth, Mikimoto-san grabbed her arms from behind and held her in an arm lock. "Get off me!" Mari screamed. It seemed as if Mikimoto-san was, in fact, the same person as Tanaka-san. Mikimoto-san held Mari's body as if it was a shield and said, "I didn't think I'd be exposed this easily." Not to mention exposed by a brat such as this. Mikimoto-san grabbed onto his false beard and ripped it off in one fell swoop. The shape of his chin was without a doubt the same as Tanaka-san's. "So, that means that you're really," Kobayashi-san said, at a loss for words. "That's right. It's just as she said. I put that dead body up there. I didn't think anyone would see through me. I had no idea there was some kind of famous detective here with us." Mari struggled and tried to break free of Mikimoto-san's arm lock, but he just strengthened his grip. hurts. Let go of me. If you struggle, you're going to get your arms broken. What are you going to do? Mari said, turning blue. Well, I wonder what I should do. There's no way we're going to stay friends until the morning. Maybe I should take some hostages, or perhaps I should just kill you all. He had a strangely calm tone of voice. You've got to be kidding. Mari's voice was shaking. I didn't know why she was so calm. And just as I thought that, Mari whipped around just like a belly dancer. And Mikimoto-san flew into the air. In the next moment, he had fallen with his back down onto the table. Broken cups flew everywhere. It almost seemed as if Mikimoto-san had lost consciousness before he realized that he'd been thrown by Mari. He couldn't say anything for a long time, and then froze as if he was striking some sort of pose. Mari, as well, as if she was somewhat shocked, seemed to blush and looked in my direction. To tell the truth, I actually studied a bit of Aikido just to protect myself. I didn't know I'd be able to use it this perfectly, though. Maybe I just misunderstood because I'm a woman. I think what she meant was, it's not a very ladylike thing to do. As if that was some kind of signal, we all started to move around flustered. We decided to tie him up while he was passed out. As Kobayashi-san brought some rope from the laundry, Toshio-san and myself started to tie Mikimoto-san up and rolled him onto the floor. As if the thread of nervousness had broken, everybody seemed a little bit relieved and fell into the sofa. That was quite a show you put on, Mari. I mean, your reasoning was excellent, but that turn, that throw, to be able to toss a body like that, a huge body like that, it's kind of hard to believe, Kobayashi-san said, and everybody seemed to agree. Well, Mari, how about opening a detective agency? You know, with this incident, you could become famous and you get a whole lot of customers. You know, you ought to stop joking around, Kayama-san. Mari-san replied, although she seemed somewhat interested in what he was saying. Well, I'm not joking around. I think it's a good idea. Don't you? Now stop making strange suggestions, Kayama-san's wife said. I was just a little bit disappointed. I mean, I managed to make some really good reasoning up to a certain point. Mari looked furtively in my direction. Yeah, well, now that you mention it, maybe it is a good idea. A detective agency. Don't you think it's a good idea, Toru? Yeah, sure. If I do open an agency, will you be my assistant? Oh, she was so kind to say so. I looked around at everybody fussing over Muddy, a little bit embarrassed. I was glad, though. I was glad that everyone was safe. Wait a second. I looked at the passed out Mikimoto-san on the floor. Why had this person murdered someone? And what was the true identity of the victim? Oh well. I'm sure the police will find out once they do an investigation. I realized that it didn't have anything to do with us.